All right, so I don't typically rant on this channel, but I have to talk about this. This morning, I woke up and I looked at Threads, and I'm not going to show this guy's name or handle or anything like that, but I want to talk about what he said, because this is something that I'm seeing a lot more these days in different avenues, and it really grinds my gears. So this person says, if you want to make a living as an independent touring artist, put aux instruments in backing tracks. Paying multiple touring musicians in the beginning will render your project unprofitable. It's 2025, no one cares. The only people that care you don't have a bass player live are bass players. Focus on making your live performance as streamlined and engaging as you can with the least amount of overhead. Source, I tour the planet with a small independent band that is profitable. Now, look, I completely understand the need to make touring makes sense, especially if you're a full-time artist, you're a full-time musician, like you need to make money. I completely understand that. And part of that is finding ways of saving costs, of saving overhead when it comes time to go out on the road and perform for your fans live. This is why we see so many bands and players now pushing for things like silent stages and digital rigs and all this kind of stuff, because it does make it easier, less expensive, and more convenient. And that's fine. But this whole idea of not hiring musicians because no one cares except those musicians that you don't hire is incredibly lame. Now, I spent years on the road playing for artists as one of these hired gun musicians, and I have seen firsthand how much money these artists can lose on the road, paying guys like me and other musicians to go out and perform their music live for an audience. Like, trust me, I get it. But this idea that you should not hire someone, you should replace their musicianship and their skill set and their talent and what they bring to your live show, you should replace that with an Ableton session, is just not the way, especially if you're a rock band or some kind of rock adjacent genre. I think your first priority should be to have the musicians that you need on stage to perform your music live to an audience of people, whether that's a small audience in a small room or you're selling out big venues. This idea that you can just replace people with tracks in an Ableton session because it'll put a few extra $100 or a few $1,000 in your pocket at the end of a tour is really frustrating. I think this is part of this whole sort of race to the bottom that I think we're all starting to see, especially in the live touring industry, where people's main concern seems to be, how do I do this as cheaply and as easily as possible? Not how can I put on the best show possible with the limitations and resources that I have. It comes across as, what's the bare minimum I can do before my audience starts to notice and starts to care? Do I really need to have that bass player? Do I really need to have actual drums on stage and an actual drummer? I could just, put the tracks from the record up. It's not like people care if there's a real guitar player with a real amp on stage. Nobody cares about that. It's 2025. They just care about hearing their favorite song that comes up on their Spotify playlist. So I don't need to do all this stuff because nobody cares. If you follow that logic, it's like, what are you even doing all this for? Why are you even performing live? Like, why are you dressing up to go on stage? If nobody cares and no one's really paying attention, just play in the travel clothes that you have. Just wear your Crocs and your sweatpants that you were in the van in all day. It's not like people care. They don't care what you look like on stage. No one's paying attention. In fact, why even perform live? No one cares. So why not just show up and stand on stage with your laptop and hit play on your Ableton session? No one cares, right? Now, obviously that's a little over the top, but to me, that is where this whole sort of thought process goes. And I want to point out that touring and making a living in music has never been easy, especially for the artists and especially for the musicians. This industry has basically always been set up to benefit the people at the top to benefit the labels, the executives, now the Spotify executives, and the monopoly that is Live Nation and Ticketmaster. You basically have two main entities that control the entire music world, at least in North America, which is on the live touring side, Live Nation and Ticketmaster. They own basically every single level of touring infrastructure, and the few venues that are left, the few independent venues that are left, they're either closing down or they're being bought out by Live Nation, Ticketmaster. And then on the other side, on the streaming side, you basically just have Spotify. So these two monopolistic entities basically set the rules that we all have to play by, and it creates an environment like we're in now, where artists and musicians just don't make money. The ability to make a living in this is so much harder now than I think it maybe has ever been. I don't know. I wasn't alive and working in the 70s and 80s and 90s, but over the last 12 to 13 years of me being in this industry, I have seen it become harder and harder for my working musician friends and peers to continue to make a living in this world. And I think that's a direct result of these monopolies being able to set the system up to benefit only them at the expense of the artists, the writers, the producers, the musicians. It's insane. And that's a completely other conversation. It definitely has to change, or else I think we're headed for a very, very dark place for the future of music. But I think that system breeds this kind of mentality, this sort of race to the bottom. What's the bare minimum I can do to get by and still be profitable? And I just think, like, if that's your main concern, if being profitable as a touring artist is your number one concern, I think you should find something else to do. At this point, if you're in music, trying to make it as an artist so that you can make money, I think there's way better and easier industries to work in than music. And I want to point out that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a job and a career outside of music that supports your ability to do music. One of my best friends is an incredible artist that I work with and have recorded with and toured with. I love his music. I love him. He has a day job. All year he works super hard so that he can save up the money to go out and tour and perform his music the way he wants to do it on his own terms. I think that is the most noble thing that you can do as a musician, as an artist. Having a job or a career outside that supports your ability to go pursue your art for the sake of pursuing your art is kind of the core idea of being an artist, in my opinion. Whereas people like this on Threads who are posting about the best ways to be profitable and trying to grow a following around being profitable as a musician, it just, to me, feels like they're playing into this system, which I understand. I understand the need and the desire to be able to do music full time. I have that need and that desire, but I'm no longer a full-time touring guitar player because honestly, it just wasn't sustainable for me. And the YouTube thing became sustainable. And so now for me, this part of my career is what will support the artist part of my career. And there's absolutely a place for people online to talk about the economics of touring and being an artist, for us to share information with each other on the best ways to do this so that we're not losing money as artists and musicians out on the road. But advocating for cutting out other artists and other musicians and replacing them with backing tracks so that you can be a little bit more profitable is not cool. It's incredibly lame. And I think people do care. I think you're wrong. I think audiences, whether they realize it or not, I think they care. I think aesthetics matter. If you're a rock band or an artist that is sort of rock adjacent, I think there is value in having amps on stage and having drums on stage, because people that are paying to come see you play, they're paying for an experience. And part of that entertainment in a live show, a big part of it is the visual aspect. That's why we have lighting systems and lighting directors. That's why you dress up in cool clothes on stage. I think part of that is having a cool backline of stuff that fits the vibe and the aesthetic of the music that you're going for, because I do think audiences notice. I do think they care. And again, I understand there are certain circumstances that cause limitations to where bands can't do that, where they have to have silent stages. They have to tour with no backline. Totally understandable. But the idea of doing it because people don't notice and people don't care, so I don't have to put the work in. I don't have to bring a trailer. I don't have to load in and out every night. I can just have my entire rig in a bag and a guitar case, and I can just load in one go because people don't care. Sucks. I think that mentality absolutely sucks. It's not cool. I think people do care. I think you're, in the long run, shooting yourselves in the foot by doing that. And it really grinds my gears. I don't know how to put it any other way than that. I guess what I'm getting at here is just don't half-ass it, right? We all have limitations. We all have to make it make sense for us. Otherwise, you can't go out and do it. Just do it to the best of your ability, right? And if that means, if the best of your ability or the best of your limitations means that you have to have backing tracks replacing musicians, that's fine. But don't voluntarily make that choice just so that you can be a little bit more profitable and because people don't care. That sucks. And I think you're wrong. I think people do care. So that's a rant. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm interested in hearing your side of this conversation, and maybe we'll start doing more of these rants on the channel in the near future. I don't know. Thank you for watching. My name's Rhett Scholl, and I will catch you on the next one.